Everybody, and I'm so glad that I got this opportunity to connect with so many people on mental health because that's my passion. I am in the field since last 15 years working on all mental health, and I've literally seen mental health grow in these last 15 years, especially in India, right? And in a humor way, when we psychologists talk, we in a light-hearted way, we say before pre-COVID times, every Indian family had a doctor because we all have the box of medicines. Post-COVID times, every family has a psychologist who talks about stress, who talks about mental health, because we have become more aware, especially in the post-COVID times, right? So today I will be taking up this session on stress management and relaxation technique. When I say this topic, to me only it sounds very cliche. All right. So I will try to make it as layman as possible, as relatable as possible. So without further ado, let me share the screen. All right, here it is. Okay, is the screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's begin this. Now, before I start all these definitions and etc., which I am sure already are very well versed with, I want to ask you, it's around 5 p.m. there in India, and how was everybody's day to day on the scale of 0 to 5, wherein 0 means absolutely no stress, buttery smooth, and 5 means extreme debilitating stress. So where would you rate yourself from 1 to 5? Oh, we have 5, 4. Okay, 4, 10. All right. Okay. All right. Oh, so I see a lot of stress. And because we see so much of stress answers in the chat box, I'm sure I'll be able to give you some solutions. Okay. All right. So let's move further. And when I see these answers in the chat box, one thing is very, very clear, that stress is a part and parcel of life. It is not something that you can do away with. In the current scenario, we talk more about it, but the stress part has always been a part of our living. If you go to your grandfathers, great grandfathers, were they stressed in any way? Can you tell me in what way were they stressed? What were their stressors? What were their stressors? Survival. Excellent. No, of course they had stress. No stresses. I don't believe that. Because we were not in that era, we cannot relate to their kind of stress. But stress has always been a part of financial stress, raising kids, the main, to nurture the grandchild, social ranking. Yes, also a lot of them were farmers. So whether the rain will come, whether they'll have a good crop, survival needs, there was no electricity, so they have to cover everything within the daylight. Marriage for women, money. So now you see what the point that I'm trying to make here is that stress has always been there, whether it is today. Domestic violence is today also. So whether it is today or whether it is in the past. All right. So much so, I always say, if I go back to the most stressful situations, they were wars, and the wars were so common in the yesteryears, right? So right, so let's move further. And let's see what exactly is stress that we have been facing it. But it is normal to have stress. Is normal. When does the bigger question is, when does stress become so-called abnormal? When does it need attention? That is what we need to understand more than anything else. Okay. All right. Okay. So I want to ask you that if your car suddenly stops, what from these 4 options will you choose to check first? Please write in the chat box. 2, 2, 1. Check the fuel. All right. All right. Right. So these 1 and 2 are the most common things that we end up checking, right? Either the fuel is over or the engine is overheated and the lack of coolant or something like that. And then if these 2 things are okay, we go to the third point of checking if the exhaust has some debris in it, and it is choking. And last and the rare thing is that engine has some loose bolts. Our human body is somewhat similar, though it is a car is a man-made machine. So the difference is that a car, in the case of any of the 4, will suddenly stop. But your human body will give you enough warnings, enough red flags before it actually congs off, becomes dysfunctional, and you collapse. All right. So first is checking the fuel. So draw a parallel of your human body. When you are lacking fuel, whether it is physical fuel, good nutrition, or move further. Can everybody put themselves on a mute? All right. So, or then we have to see that what kind of fuel is lacking. It can be a recreational fuel. We need more rest. We need emotional fuel. We need, nutritional fuel and all sorts of fuel. Mostly stress can be managed at that level, right? All right. Second is checking if the engine or if it's overheated. So this stage comes in human body when you are exhausted, when there is a lot of overload, and you get angry, or you start getting agitated, frustrated at every drop of the hat because you are overheated internally, but you can't do much about it. Then we go to the third, that there is some debris. All right. And that debris can be a stuck thought. There can be a thought that gets stuck in the mind, and we have to deal with it so that our body and mind starts working properly. And last is, when we say loose engine bolts, there is something wrong. We say screw deela. So that is like there is some chemical imbalance that is there, right? So this is the way you can draw a parallel between a machine and a human body, but human body is beautifully engineered by a higher power, and hence it will not stop suddenly. It will give you enough chances to rectify it before it actually stops. All right, let us move ahead. Okay, and then understanding stress. I'm sure you all know how and what stress is. This is very theoretical. As Hans Seal, he is the expert, the psychologist who expertise in stress. He said the aim is stress management. You You can control it so an optimal level of arousal is present. We human beings need a bit of stress to keep our engine. If there is no stress, why would we go to work? Why would we do minimal things that we do? So it is a driving force, but in a boundary, in a limit. So it actually helps us. Okay. So there are stressors that are in the environment, simple stressors, everyday stressors. You are driving to your workplace and there is a lot of traffic, more than usual. That can cause a stress. All right. You're leaving home and you forget your important file at home. That is a stressor. So these are like, minor stimulus, everyday events that can make you feel tensed and aroused. All right. Then is stress, physical, mental, or emotional strain resulting from stressors. Now, this kind of stress is over a period of time stress. All right. When you have some conflict within that you are not able to resolve, like a marital discord is there, or, most important and undermined stress is when you have a child with the special needs. That's a long-term stress on a parent, both the parents, right? And last is, like we say, eustress versus de-stress. Eustress is good stress that will keep you driving. Distress is when a kind of stress that will collapse you, right? Now let us see the definition. In stress is physical, mental, emotional response to the events that cause bodily or mental tension. It is basically our response, our system within response to the stress, right? We may want to, there's increased blood flow, there is increased heartbeat, as simple as that. Don't get into technical definition. It is just that the way our body will respond. We can start sweating, we can start getting that adrenal rush within. Simple. That is stress. Stress can be a good thing. As I said, it is a driving force, but stress can be as harmful if it is a long-term stress, constant stress, which is eventually harming you, which is keeping your BP high, which is giving you constant migraines, which has started giving you physical symptomatology, right? Ulcers, so on and so forth. Harmful stress, this is the kind of stress that would be, okay, this is the kind of stress that would be helpful to limit and learn to manage in a healthy way. So some amount of stress, good, important, but we need to manage stress at the level of when it makes us unhealthy. Okay, here we have a description of what is harmful stress and what is a good stress. Okay, so harmful stress is somebody meets with a major accident, that's a harmful stress. But marriage is stressful, especially for girls, shopping so much, what to choose, which makeup artist to book, for men which car to buy. All these are good stressors, but they are equally stressors. All right. So harmful stress versus good stress. So this is the example to make you understand. Factors that impact stress. Now, as I said, the duration is very, very important. If somebody is in a constant stress since years, it will harm the physical and mental well-being of a person. All right. So duration is important. So if you are under constant stress from like many, many years and it is showing in your physical body, that's a red flag. All right. Intensity is how much is it? Like, when I asked from 1 to 5, some people wrote 10. Everybody who wrote 10, it's a red flag, because that means that intensity is inexplicable. It is more than even 5, more than asked. All right. Frequency is how frequently you feel that. Is it always that way? Or is it in waves you get too stressful? Some people get it in waves, they become too helpless. Familiarity, how familiar is the situation? This is an important point because there are people who might feel stressed for different things. All right, sometimes they're stressful for this, sometimes, so there's no familiarity. Every time there can be a new situation. Personality, it can be a personality thing. Some people are naturally drawn towards getting worked up easily than others. And then is controllability. How easy for you it is to control it. It can be that it can be so that in the wave of stress you are not able to see solutions, but actually if somebody shows you objectively, there is a controllability factor available. All right. Okay. And every day, see, there are, uh, I would actually want you to do this. Tell me the stressors that you have in routine, routine stressors that come and go every single day. I can give you an example of traffic, I mean, commuting from one place to another and, facing the traffic. That's an everyday stress. So routine stressors, if I can have a few. Dinner kya khana hai actually? Yes. Preparing meals, food. These are all everyday stressors. And because they are everyday stresses, all right. So because they are these stressors are everyday stressors, we have developed some or the other coping strategies for it, right? Like, there are 2-3 people, right? Dinner kya banana hai, what to make, what to cook. We have a coping strategy of having a menu. And so on and so forth. Everyday stressors are easy to manage. But if that everyday stressor is causing you cumulative stress, and there are fights at home or there are fights at work, then it needs to be looked into. Then it needs cognitive appraisal. What is cognitive appraisal? Very technical term. Huh? Cognitive appraisal is we need to think and appraise the situation. Sometimes as human beings, what we do is, especially under stress, we magnify the situation. All right, we make the situation seem too awful, but in reality it is not so. So every time you are under these stressors that you just wrote, all right, if that is causing you some cumulative stress, ask yourself, am I like magnifying the situation? Is this that big? Or I'm just making it too big? Questioning and self-talk is very important when it comes to stress, right? Using the terms that are correct is very important. I'll give you a very interesting example here, okay? How self-talk matters. आप पुराने जमाने में चले जाओ, like my grandmother, not the old age of today, they are very very well read. No, my grandmother, if I would have ever asked her, how are you doing, how are you feeling, she would just reply in one line, pata nahi bahut घबराहट हो रही है. Now whether that घबराहट is acid reflux, whether that घबराहट is anxiety, whether is that घबराहट is some stressor in her mind, or whether that घबराहट is actually as big as CHD, coronary heart disease, was left on the doctors. उनके पास वो vocabulary नहीं थी, because she did not have that vocabulary of अरे मेरे को बहुत डिप्रेशन हो रहा है. लेकिन आज की डेट में the difference is we have a huge array of vocabulary. On the drop of the hat, we magnify and we give ourselves a label. The most difficult things today psychologists that are we are mental health professionals are facing, trust me, and we have, like, in conferences we talk about it, that people are coming self-diagnosed, and that is the most dangerous thing. People don't come to us saying that घबराहट हो रही है, या मन, we are not able to sleep, या we have lost our appetite. They come by saying, doctor, I have depression. That is worrisome. So now what happens here is that as a mental health professional, this is something that bothers us. In this case, what is happening is in today's era, because we are too well aware, we are magnifying the thing. Even the common things we sometimes magnify. And when we magnify, then the problem starts. When we magnify, then the self-talk is affected. Right? And then we say, oh God, taking care of so much is, yes, it is very worrisome, especially for women. Managing the work and managing the home can be a huge task. And I understand as a woman that the household chores can be sometimes very thankless as a job. So here comes, without magnification, if we can cognitively appraise the situation and say, yaar, ye utna bhi bura nahi hai. I can have the solutions. I can delegate work. I can compartmentalize work. I can sit and have solutions. I can have a menu. Things can change. So in today's situation, we make in our head the situation too awful. That's the problem. We know too much. That's the problem. Casually we use terms like, "Arey, kya usko bahut depression hai." And I always end up asking, do you even know what having depression feels like? We can use terms like, yaar, aaj na bada low lag raha tha. Oh, today is a gloomy day. That's a better way, rather than jumping to the conclusion saying, oh, I have depression, I'm feeling very depressed. Terms like depression, anxiety are clinical terms. They need formal diagnosis by a certified professional to exist. All right. So always when you are in these, especially in the everyday stress that are cumulative, appraise the situation. Appraise that, is this situation really this bad? Or is it the cumulative effect? या फिर मैं इसका solution नहीं निकाल पा रही हूँ या नहीं निकाल पा रहा हूँ, इसीलिए it is hovering over me. Once we do that, we nip it in the bud. We don't let it increase. All right, let's see further. Harmful stress versus good stress. Potentially stressful objective events, major exam, a big date, trouble with one's boss, financial setback, which may lead to frustration, conflict, change, or pressure. Now you see subjective appraisal, how you can think about it. Personalized perception of threat. Oh, my boss, my team leader is not being good to me. Oh, it can be a big threat to my position and my job in the company. यहाँ पे चल रहा है, ये हुआ नहीं है. We start worrying about things that 90% of the times we worry about things that never happen, if you come to think about it. Now, personalized perception of threat, which are influenced by familiarity with the event, its controllability, its predictability, and so on. Predictable, क्या हो सकता है? Yeah, she's not going to give me any promotion this time. All right. Or it can be familiarity. Oh, I know this situation. She has been like this before. I know how to deal with this. All right. Now, all these things, all this cognitive, Sara ka Sara khel, all the drama that is happening and all the control and free will that you have is at this stage of cognitive appraisal. How you appraise the situation in your head. Now, emotional response can be annoyance, anger, anxiety, fear, grief. Physiological response can be hormonal fluctuation. Autonomic arousal is increased heartbeat, more sweating, absenteeism, neurochemical changes, and so on. Lack of sleep, lack of appetite. Behavioral response can be coping efforts such as lashing out at others, blaming oneself, seeking help, which is a good solution, solving problems, and releasing emotions. So you have to understand that any stress, how will it affect you? How will it reach you? Stress will remain. There would be some situation that will be stressful here and there. But how much will it affect you depends on your subjective cognitive appraisal, how you perceive it. So next time you are in a stressful situation, ask yourself, Am I magnifying it, or am I making it like more awful than it is? When I teach my students, I always make them understand this point by the word awfulize, like bhayankarizing. We make the situation bhayankar in our head, but actually it is not as bad. It's all the appraisal, cognitive appraisal that goes behind it. All right. So, very interesting slide, one of my favorite slides. Now you see there's some numbers. I'll simplify it for you. You see that there's a correlation with resilience. All right. Now, negative emotions, you see there is a negative correlation, which means that if you are angry, if you are annoyed, if you are unhappy, scared, fearful, what happens is your resilience. What is resilience? To cope with the stress. Power to cope with the stress. All right. It is in negative. All right. So more the negative emotions, lesser your resilience, lesser your coping strategies, lesser ideas here, lesser ideas to solve the problem. Right. But if you are positive, like, you are grateful, you are thankful, you are joyful, optimistic. I'm not talking about toxic positivity here, but if you are optimistic, you know that there has to be a solution. Everything has a solution. You are content, you are peaceful, then there is a positive correlation. So if you have positive emotions, your resilience is higher. You are in a better position to deal with your issues and your stressors at hand. You are able to manage them. All right, let me move to the next slide. Responding to stress physiologically. See, there are two mechanisms. When you are in a stress, there are two things that happen. Okay, we either have to fight the situation or we have to run away from the situation. So it is called fight or flight. We are all Indians, and little do we, I don't know how, if I ask you, if I ask all of you here, how many of you know little bit of Bhagavad Gita, little bit of Gita, or have you even heard about it? Do you know what is it about? Can I have that response in the chat box? Yep. Yeah. So basically, if we have even little bit of knowledge, or even if as Indians we know what that book, holy book, is all about, you know that there was a fight situation, and the whole Gita was that Arjuna wanted to run away. He was scared. He was scared to see his own clan that he had to fight. There were two things he could do. Either he had to fight or he just wanted to escape. So fight and flight responses go back to that Dwapar Yoga and Gita, wherein Arjuna also wanted to either fight the situation. He had only two choices. And if you actually read chapter number 1 in Gita, really, as Indians, we must. I'm telling you, Westerners are all learning a lot from Gita. We Indians are not. Okay. So chapter 1 in Gita will give you all the symptoms of stress and anxiety and panic. But there were no labels. Arjuna did not go to Krishna saying, "Oh Krishna, I'm feeling very anxious." He did not say that. He just said that, I am losing control. Gandhivya is dropping from my hand. I am sweating. I can't see anything. I cannot think straight. All the symptoms are there in the chapter 1 Gita. So stress is dated back to that. And Arjuna also had only two options in the face of danger when he had to fight. Either he could fight or he could run away. He chose to escape. He said, I am not fighting. Here is your Gandhivya. I am going. I am not fighting. And then Arjuna had to, the whole Gita is for that. He inculcated that fighters and warrior spirit in him. Same happens to us. Whenever we are in a situation, right, Whenever we are in a situation, we have two choices: either to fight the situation. I suppose you have a presentation, suppose you have a deadline, okay, you want to present something. Now you can make an excuse and say, oh my, this was not working, this happened. You can easily escape. Or the second thing is, you meet the deadline, you fight with your time, you present it. So in any sort of stressful situation, or this is a good stress situation that I'm talking about, if there is a bad stress situation, which can be that there is a fight at the home and you don't want to. Mostly what happens when there is a marital discord, the man would not want to go back home. He would either go here and there or have a few drinks, and then at night, जितना समय घर पे कम बिताएं भाई उतना ही अच्छा. That is what, that is a flight mode. Fight mode is sitting and finding solutions, not like literally fighting with your spouse, but fighting the situation, fighting the conflict, resolving it. So in any of the situation, even physiologically, if there is a dog that is running after you, either you can pick a stone and hit the dog, or you can run away from the situation, run as fast as you can. So fight and flight, and both the things, whether you are fighting or you are running, both the things, both the option would need more blood flow, higher, that's why your heart pumps faster, you need more sugar in the body, you need more energy, and you need your sympathetic system to get activated. That is why you feel all the emotional and physical turmoil when you are either fighting or escaping the stress. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now whenever we are in stress, we respond to it behaviorally, emotionally, cognitively, so on and so forth. How do we actually, let us say, behaviorally respond to the stress? बहुत simple है, गुस्सा हो जाना, frustration, aggression. That rebel comes in. Oh, enough is enough. I'm not doing it now. So that is frustration, aggression. Easiest response, behavioral response to stress is to lash out. I'm not doing it. All right, raising your voice or fighting with people around. If the stress is at work and you can't make that person or that authority figure a target, you go back and lash people out, displays the anger. But anger. All right, catharsis. Catharsis is when you sit and talk. You might just say, Chala, let's go for a drink or two. Or we say, okay, let's go for a smoke. Let's go and talk. The catharsis, that is again a behavioral response to stress when you want to talk it out. All right. And then defense mechanism. Defense mechanism is a very technical term. We all use defense mechanisms. One of the simple defense mechanism is projection. If I have not been able to finish my work within a deadline, I can project it on 100 things. I did not get the material, the other team did not cooperate, this did not happen, that. So we project our own limitations on others. But for the time being, when we use the defense mechanism, we are able to let go of the stress on us, on ourselves. All right. And there are various defense mechanisms that we use, including some good ones, where in creativity and art, we call it sublimation. That is also a defense mechanism to put you off. I always tell my clients also, and I'm sure many of you also do it, recreational activity is also a kind of behavioral response to stress. Like, people go for run, people go gymming, they feel lighter. That's also a behavioral response, and it is a defense mechanism also, physical activity. Sublimation. Now, coping. How do you cope? Again, I would repeat, reappraise the situation in your head. Always question yourself. Self-talk is very important. Question yourself that, are you really feeling stressed and depressed, or it is just one of the gloomy days that can be managed? All right. Then confronting the problems. Flight is not always the answer. It's an easier answer, but it is not always appropriate. We need to sit down. If there is a team member with whom you have some conflict, or if there is something happening, sit and talk, confront the things. What is the issue? Because nobody is here to take, there's no personal agenda here, right? So we need to sit and talk, and in a very graceful manner, we need to deal with that situation using humor. Humor is good till the time it is not sarcastic. If it is sarcastic and it is personal, it can add on to the stress, but otherwise humor is good. Expressing emotions. You can go and, if you are feeling stuck in an organization, if you think that, I can do more, or my potential is not being used, you can go and speak to the person concerned, or back in the family, if you have some issue with your spouse, go and talk and express emotions that, this is how I feel. This is how I'm feeling in my current space. What solutions can you suggest to me? All right. So expressing emotions is important. Managing hostility is important. Putting someone down, demeaning somebody, sarcasm, it's very easy. These things are very easy. Anybody can do it and feel good. In fact, people who do that, bullies are actually the most fearful people, because they just have to put their others down to feel better. So don't use hostility. There are better solutions, and when you use hostility, it only makes the situation worse for you, right? So coping strategies are, again, reappraisal, confronting the problems, using humor, expressing your emotions, expressing how you feel, acknowledge your emotions, and managing hostility. All right. All right, there's a small table here that I'll just quickly go through. Nothing very complicated. They say that, there is an activating event. There is something that is stressful. Okay, someone stands you up on a date you looked forward to. Somebody says that, oh, we are not meeting today, and you were looking forward to that meeting, that date. Now, activating event can be that somebody did that to you, somebody so-called called off a date. Now, belief system can be, there are two kinds of, now see, this is cognitive appraisal. Okay, there are two kinds of belief systems that can work in this situation. One is very irrational, illogical, right? Illogical can be, this is terrible, I must have been, I'll be having a boring weekend, I'll never find anybody, I must be a worthless person. Now, this is what I call as illogical. There's no logic backed to it. Somebody calling off a date does not make us unworthy, but that's how our mind thinks. That's irrational cognitive appraisal. Belief, at the level of belief system, we appraise the situation. Another rational way of appraising the situation is, this is unfortunate, but I'll salvage the weekend. Someday I'll find someone who is more mature and dependable. That's a better way to look at the situation, rather than, putting yourself down and making the whole thing too terrible. So in the second case, you are not magnifying the situation, and you are not awfulizing the situation. All right. Now, the consequences, in the case of first appraisal, which was irrational, you feel angry, anxious, agitated, dejected. In the second appraisal, which is much more calm, much more poised, what happens? You feel annoyed and subdued, but you remain hopeful. You are disappointed, right? You are not like all around the place. You are disappointed. You are not angry and, agitated, right? So this is what I mean when I say that you have to cognitively appraise the situation. If you learn this art of appraising the situation correctly, a lot of your battles can be managed. And in a lot of situations, many situations. Okay, now you see effects of stress on both behavioral and psychological aspects. All right, you see that anything, if you are, let us assume you are holding a 50 kg bag on your head. For the first 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's okay. But beyond that, it is going to give you symptoms. It will hurt you. It can hurt your head. It can cause you issues. And you can actually practically collapse also. Same is with that heavy emotional burden of stress, right? Now, what happens is work overload, lack of social support, lack of control and autonomy, inadequate recognition and rewards can all lead to what? Exhaustion, cynicism, lowered self-efficacy. And all this would lead to burnout. Consequences would be increased physical illness. Let me tell you something. The latest research, I don't know how many of you know, let me tell you. The latest research says that all the physical illnesses are psychosomatic. It's a huge breakthrough in the medical science, very recent. All your physical illnesses start from your mind. It's all psychosomatic. All the burden that we keep carrying within. So increased physical illness, increased absenteeism, therefore less turnover, decreased commitment to job and reduced productivity. Your efficiency naturally will go down under this cumulative stress cycle. Now you see effects of stress. What happens? Psychosomatic diseases, coronary heart disease. I don't know, most of the families have a cardiac patient at their place. So most of the hospitals, when you are admitted in the cardiovascular ward, the cardiac department, the ward there, first a psychologist will walk in and will make you fill up a questionnaire on your stress. So heart disease is practically nothing but increased amount of stress, cumulative amount of stress. And of course, then stress will have its effect on immune system also. Now here, if you see a very simple bar chart that you see, anger level, highest anger level leads to the maximum amount of coronary events. So higher your anger, all the time, if you go to the doctor and your BP is high, the first thing he'll say is, okay, eat less salt and please don't get too angry. Keep your anger in control, right? So this is the amount of damage stress can actually do. All right, now let's go to, all right, now what I want you to do is, I want you to share in the box what you experience the most when you are under stress. Is it the physical symptoms, or is it the emotional signs, or it is the behavioral signs that you see the first? Physical, emotional, okay. All right. So, there are different people, face different things. Some people get very, very emotional, presentation of stress. Some people have a physical symptomatology and some have behavioral signs and symptoms. But it is important to understand that anything more than required needs attention. Okay. All right. So here we have, first the event happens, then you appraise the situation correctly. Please, I again and again repeat, this is the major thing. Appraise it correctly, then you make a response to it and you see what resources you have, and then you label itself, okay, I'm in stress. I think I need to kind of cope with it. I need to either fight or flight the situation depending on what I can do, right? Okay, tools for managing stress. See, all these tools are nothing that we all don't know. There is nothing new that I am adding to it. And as I said, the audience today, the people today are very well read, more well read than we would want them to be. So nutrition, so we know All of us are nutritionists. We know what should we eat, what should we not eat. But yes, managing stress through nutrition is a concept that should be actually imbibed by many of us. If we eat too much of junk, if we eat too much of fried, it has consequences. And if we eat more leafy vegetables and everything, it has any food that will, I'll put it very simply, any food that will not be inflammatory to your internal organs is naturally conserving the energy to fight the mental stress. If you're already too, if your organs are too inflamed, you will already always be very much on the edge. Also, let me add to this, your gut health, your gut health has a direct connection to your mental health. If your gut is not working properly, you know, हम लोग को stress सबसे पहले gut में feel होता है, right from the time then when we are children. जब हम एग्जाम देने जाते हैं, जब हम वाइवा के लिए, you know, when I used to go for viva, I almost all of us have had those butterflies in the stomach. All right, so it all starts with the gut, and if your gut is not okay, your stomach is not okay, you will find it difficult to cope with stress. I'll tell you second reason, which is very less known, but it is very important. Almost all of your stress hormones are made in your gut. Liver is the main organ that actually makes all the chemicals and neurotransmitters. So, you know, आजकल हम सुनते हैं, अरे serotonin उसका, you know, is not working. Serotonin is, people are well read. Dopamine is, all these serotonin, dopamine, cortisols, good chemicals are made in your gut. If your gut is not okay, it will not be able to produce these neurotransmitters and chemicals in the appropriate amount we need. So you see, nutrition is more important than it actually seems like that. Okay, progressive relaxation, there is a technique called progressive relaxation. Indian scriptures में चले जाओगे तो progressive relaxation, today it's a Western concept, but in the Indian concept, if you people have heard about Yoga Nidra, Yoga Nidra is written in Charak Samhita, the Ayurvedic book of, you know, from Indian origin. It talks about Yoga Nidra, and Yoga Nidra is actually very helpful, or you can also call it a kind of meditative state, right? So progressive relaxation, massage therapies, they do work. Again, if I date back to Indian mythology, Indian origin, there is a panch karma system, and there is a massage called abhyanga that is so good for your stress levels. You know, when a client comes to me one-on-one, I really bang on these Ayurvedic techniques, and I tell them that you please go and take this particular massage, talk to the therapist, and go to this Ayurvedic center and take that massage. It really helps, because it, you know, it helps you with the acupressure and acupuncture and all that. Exercise, needless to say, exercise good hormones, exercise serotonin, exercise happy hormones. Exercise is important. It can be any sort of exercise. Yes, I know there are people who would just be thinking right now, who has the time? You know, we are not able to make time for yourself. Otherwise, time will make itself happen. And we don't want that. We don't want that, because that can be dangerous. When your time says that you have to give me, you have to attend to me, that will be difficult. So make time right now. Sleep, very important. In the era of Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything, trust me, and the kind of stressors we have around, sleep is compromised. We need to have good, you know, people these days have started talking about 6 hours sleep is okay. No, 8 hours sleep is the minimum sleep. Yes, I do add that depends from person to person, depends from how strenuous your activity is, but nevertheless, on an average 8 hours sleep is important. Less hours of sleep in only and only show result, not now. You know, people tell with a lot of pride, 5 hours and I'm fresh, I don't need it. And I always say, the backlog that you are leaving for the sleep will only show once you will cross 50. All right. So don't give age that chance. And biofeedback. Biofeedback is deliberately keeping your heartbeat in check, deliberately doing deep breathing, deliberately doing pranayam, deliberately doing any other techniques that you know to keep your vitals in check, your blood pressure, your pulse rate, your oxygen levels, all in check. That biofeedback only puts you and your health condition in perspective. Otherwise, it's very easy to overlook it, right? And biofeedback, I include 6 months checkups of your blood work also. It's important for us to know what's happening in our body every 6 months if you are above 30 particularly. All right. All right, self-talk. I have been really talking a lot about it, that self-talk is important. Don't talk. I will give you another example that I was sharing with someone the other day. There was a girl who came to me and she said, Yogita, I'm suffering from imposter syndrome. You know, imposter syndrome is a new term in our corporate setup. And my first question was, who diagnosed you? How do you know? And she said that, I have read about it and I know about it, and it is imposter, I know. And I just told her that, if I say I have imposter syndrome, it sounds so heavy that it sounds difficult. But if I say that, I do face some self-doubt, that's easier to handle. We don't have to, again, I'll take you back to Gita, and I'll say, अगर मैं imposter syndrome की बात करूं, that this new label that we have, then Arjuna also faced imposter syndrome, I think, but he did not have this label. He did not go to Krishna and said, hey Krishna, I am facing imposter syndrome, please do something. He only said, oh, I am not feeling capable enough of fighting this war. So your self-talk is important. If you talk about huge terminologies, it will only make you worse. Coping with stress is minimizing the situations to the level that they are and not magnifying them. Meditation is a good technique, and there are people who are not able to do meditation, so they have different options. But people who are able to do meditation, it is really beneficial. It can really keep your vitals in check. All right. And you will have better self-control. Imagery, right? You imagine good things. When we imagine situation, we always imagine what wrong can happen. It's okay. What can go wrong is okay. But is it not important to also imagine what rights can happen? What good things can happen? That is also equally important. Refocusing strategies, very, very important. Whenever you are in stress, drop all multitasking. Drop all the multitasking that you are doing and only refocus on small things. You're doing laundry, be completely mindful and focused on doing that laundry. You are doing some playing some game with your kid, completely be there. Refocus your entire energy on what you are doing. All right. Okay, now systematic relaxation. You have to, there's this again a technique, you lie down and you relax each of your body part, that is there. Most important is therapy. So I really want to leave this audience with one very important thing. Leave on your therapist to decide whether this is depression, this is anxiety, or this is OCD, or this is hypochondria. You don't need to do that. Only know one thing. If the stress is becoming too overwhelming, if it is making you dysfunctional, आपका मन नहीं कर रहा है काम पे जाने का. If you have issues with your sleep, आपकी sleep cycle disturb हो रही है, आप सो रहे हो टाइम पे लेकिन आप नहीं सो पा रहे हो, या फिर even if you sleep, you get up in the very early hours, like 3, 4, you are waking up. That's a red flag. If you don't feel hungry as you used to, if your appetite has dropped, just visit a therapist and don't go with the label. You don't, if you have stomach ache for a week's time, do you go to a physician and say, doctor, I have stomach tumor? You don't do that. You don't label it. And in fact, you pray, hey Bhagwan, kuch nahi ho. It's you don't even, tumor is a big thing. You don't even go and say, doctor, I have stomach ache. I think I have gallstones. We almost always expect that doctor will say, oh, it is acid reflux, huh? You take this, you will be fine. But in the case of mental health, we use diagnosis very casually. Huge diagnosis. Oh, she's depressed. Oh, she's anxious. Don't do that. Okay. Go to therapist if the stress is going out of your hands. आपसे नहीं हो रहा है, professional is available, go for therapy. And this is a wrong notion that therapists are just there to sit there and diagnose you with something big so that you keep coming. No, trust me, I'm a therapist. I want my clients to heal as quickly as possible because that is my success, right? And most of the times clients will to us come with depression, and actually I have to tell them it is not depression. You are not clinically depressed. You don't fit the criteria. You DSM-4 के criteria के depression के criteria में आप fit नहीं आ रहे हो. It is normal day-to-day stress that has prolonged, and maybe I can put you in burnout, but I cannot say that you are depressed. So leave that job to therapy and go to therapist. It will be beneficial, right? Okay. Assertiveness is important. Sometimes, we find it difficult to say no. Kitna sab hum log, for men also, I am equally empathetic towards them, but for women also, there are so many things that maybe we don't want to do back home. And even a man, a man would want that, okay, this weekend is mine, let me relax. Don't ask me to do anything. We are not able to say, and at work front also. There is a beautiful quote, one of my favorite. It says, disagree, learn to disagree, but in an agreeable manner. नहीं बोलना सही है, किस तरीके से आप नहीं बोल रहे हो, that is important. So assertiveness is very important. You have to say that I don't appreciate this, I don't like this, I'm not comfortable with this. All right, at least let the other person know that this is not okay with me, right? Time management, an excellent tool for stress. Most of the times हमारे हाथ से हमारा टाइम स्लिप हो जाता है. Week passes, months pass, years pass. It was COVID in 2019, 2023 is about to come. Where did these 2-3 years go in spite of the fact that we were at home? I'm sure you all agree. Time slips because we do not make use of time. We do not say that, okay, this is work time and this is me time. Then what happens? We only can gauge our progress in the professional front. But personally, this has happened from 2019 to 2023. We are not able to gauge that, right? So that is where time management is very, very important. All right. And then setting boundaries is important, extremely important. What is setting boundaries? If again, it is a part of assertiveness. If there is a family, let us take a familiar example. There's a family, and you want to say that this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do, this is not something that I will take over. We can have some home help, we can have somebody do that, but setting boundaries are important. Also, sometimes we take it as an obligation that somebody XYZ has called, I have got a good free weekend after like 2 months. I had a deadline, I had to deliver. Now there is a party that somebody has called you on, and you have to set boundaries there and say that no, this weekend is this boundary, this is me. I'm not available to attend anything over this weekend. So that is setting boundaries, and setting boundaries is a huge topic which I cannot cover completely right now. I just gave you 2-3 examples. Support groups, join support groups. There are support groups that are available, wherein people of same kind of situation come together, talk and discuss how did they deal with the situation. Breath and body work, simply put pranayam, simply put breathing techniques, simply put sudarshan kriya, simply put anything to regulate your breathing. Most of the times in stress we have a shallow breathing, we breathe from chest, we need to breathe from our stomach actually. So breath work is important. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, my slide is not moving. Okay, all right. So now when we talk about breathing, let us do this small breathing technique towards the end of the session before I wind it up. So it's a simple technique. As I said, when we breathe shallow in stress, we breathe from chest. But ideal breathing is breathing from your stomach. So if you see this image here, when it's like, we also call it balloon breathing. So when you take in the breath, how the balloon inflates. When you breathe out, the balloon deflates. So consider your stomach as a balloon. There is this tiny, organ in your elastic organ in your stomach, in your gut, in your upper abdomen. We call it diaphragm, and your diaphragm gives or triggers liver to produce all those good chemicals and neurotransmitters and dopamine and serotonin. So we call it diaphragmatic breathing. When you breathe like this, your diaphragm keeps triggering the liver to produce happy hormones. We underestimate the power of our breathing, good breathing, but it is really important. So let's all of us do this together. Please close your eyes, sit comfortably with your back, with the back support, and for 5 to 6 breaths, take like this. When you take in, when you inhale, your stomach should come out, it should inflate. When you exhale, your stomach should deflate, go inside. Please try this for 5 breaths, starting now. All right, I think you can try this later and see how it goes. So that's all from me. I hope you have some good takeaways from the session. And there's a poll, you can just rate it.
Thank you so much, Yogita. I think if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. While there's a poll running over in the time where you can drop how you like the session. All right. Any questions in the chat? I think I saw a question about, is silence directly mentioned about the is unusual silence also an indication of stress?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Is unusual silence also an indication of stress?
It is. It can be when you are so overwhelmed that you don't want to, you lack words. It is. If the person was usually a person who used to speak a lot and there's a sudden silence you see, then it is a red flag, yes.
I'm just checking for any question that has come around this session. Are seizure attack indication of stress?
See, I would not say seizure in particular directly, because seizure can be actually epilepsy. But let me clarify, stroke, which can lead to seizures, can be a sign of stress. Strokes are mostly, their origin is high BP, and high BP is linked to stress. So seizures may or may not be. We need to look into this with the help of a physician.
Okay. Is there any more questions? I think Yogita will be happy to answer. You guys all can try how balloon breathing works. I think it's a good exercise, right? Yogita? Like, do you have any suggested timing or like any suggestions when they should do?
Sorry?
The balloon exercise.
Yeah. So balloon exercise, it's a very good exercise. Really, it works on your diaphragm and your liver. And I always say that before sleeping, do this for 20 breaths, minimum 20 breaths just before sleeping, right, at night. Is the sprain which happened in the neck side? It is. Let me tell you one thing, Sanjana, that when you have your shoulders aching, then if there's a constant pain here, it is a sign of stress. This is muscular stress. That is why they say that if you exercise, you are in a better position to deal with stress, because most of your stress gets stuck in your muscles. We call it muscular stress, and especially on your shoulders. If it is, if no injury has happened, and if you just constantly have this, cervical is also psychosomatic. Can we stand and do balloon breath? You can even walk, you can stand, you can sit, you can sleep. The good part is you are going for an interview, you start your balloon breathing, it will help you. Anywhere, anytime, in any position, you can do it.
I think there's another question. Is addiction to something like mobile or alcohol, smoking also a sign of stress?
They are a form of escapism. You know, fight and flight we were talking. So it is a flight response to stress. All the addiction come under when you want to escape stress. So it is. Have you seen stressful men watching TV mindlessly? They don't even know what's happening, but they just watch. So it is flight.
Okay. I think we are way over our timing, and thank you so much, Yogita, for doing the session with us
Pleasure.
today. Yes, I am just dropping the link for our upcoming session. You can just click on it and register for our upcoming sessions. This month we have a investment session for 2023. We have comedy sessions coming up 25th, and we have many more other on our pipeline. As well as please check out Manoshala. They offer variety of services, therapy on like art therapy, music therapy, and many others, where you can actually get stress when if you are going through a regular counseling and something like that. Art therapy or something, a therapy based session is a great way to cope with everything. And I think you can just check out Manoshala for that reference. And thank you so much, guys, for staying here for like 1:15 hour. And I hope the session was helpful to everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Yogita.
All right. Thank you so much. Good day.
You too. Bye. Bye, guys.